guys, welcome back to Now Showing. I am your host, John. I am one half of the Now Showing guys, and on today's episode, we are going to discuss the history of zombies, primarily focusing on the impact Pittsburgh had on pop culture and zombie movies in general, and why Pittsburgh truly is the zombie capital of the world. Now, before we can really get into what part Pittsburgh really played in zombies, you kind of have to have an understanding of where zombies came from and what a zombie movie was prior to the late 60s when Night of the Living Dead came out. More on that in a little bit. So, 1932, a movie came out called White Zombie starring Bela Lugosi, and this was kind of considered to be the first zombie movie. There were a few kind of in the silent era, but White Zombie is is considered to be the first zombie movie, and it really isn't what you consider to be a zombie by today's standard. What a zombie was back then was a mind-controlled slave. In White Zombie, you had like rituals, you had spells that you would cast, and then you were able to control a human being, and that was what a zombie was. You also had Revolt of the Zombie, which was a loose sequel to it, once again playing on the mystical side of mind control. The other form of zombies you had were aided by the creation from aliens. Aliens came from outer space and resurrected the corpses, like in Plan 9 from Outer Space. It wasn't until in 1968 when an up and coming director by the name of George A. Romero took a chance and created Night of the Living Dead, which completely revolutionized what we considered a zombie, and it was the birth of the modern zombie. George A. Romero is considered to be the godfather of the modern zombie. Reason being is it was the first time that we got what we consider a zombie today, a resurrected corpse. There are some other variations that have come out, viruses, etc., but it all stems from the resurrected, slow, shambling corpses that George A. Romero created in Night of the Living Dead. These were the people that basically they rose from the ground, still wearing what they were buried in, tattered. It really wasn't the most gruesome movie as far as special effects, makeup, that sort of thing. They did get some pretty good gore when it came to some of the deaths and that, and like tearing the flesh off, some of the killings and stuff. But all in all, it was kind of a, by today's standard, a calm movie. Back then, it was like, think of like an NC-17 movie. Like it was, it freaked people out. So, like I said, Night of the Living Dead came out in 1968. It was filmed in Evans City, which you can still go to the cemetery still to this day, and you can pick out the tombstones and stuff that you see in the movie. You can, if you wanted to, you could go there and recreate a scene if you wanted. Many of the movies that came out after Night of the Living Dead, they tried to build on what George A. Romero did, but most of them fell short in creating a compelling zombie story. It wasn't until 1978, when Dawn of the Dead was released, that we got proper clarity of what a zombie movie was supposed to be. Dawn of the Dead was filmed at the Monroeville Mall, once again outside of Pittsburgh, PA, and you can still go to the Monroeville Mall. You can see where certain scenes were filmed. A lot of the stores have changed since this movie did come out over 30 years ago. Now, a lot of people consider Dawn of the Dead to be the greatest zombie movie of all time, which I can agree with that. I mean, it is a solid movie. It has a lot of good effects, a good story. The acting is good. I mean, there's some cheesy parts to it, but all in all, it is a perfect zombie movie. One thing that George A. Romero is known for, not just for zombie movies, is his social commentary that he kind of sneaks into the movies, and basically telling how society is, what kind of issues are going on for that decade when the movie came out. With this one, you had a lot of the consumerism that was kind of going on, and you kind of had that whole play. There's, I can't remember the exact line, but they're talking about the zombies, and they're like, what are they doing? And it's basically they're just doing what they've always done. They're known to just go to the mall, and that's kind of part of the reason it takes place at a mall. So, like I said, I can get on board with it being the greatest zombie movie of all time, as far as like if you're breaking it into categories of like slow shambling zombies, the George A Romero zombie. Um, but me personally, I'm more of a traditionalist, so I lean more towards Night of the Living Dead as the greatest zombie movie, because I mean, how can you say it's not? It's the one that started it all. If you didn't have that one, then you don't have Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, 28 Weeks Later, Train to Busan, World War Z. You don't have any of that. So I mean, I just feel on the just because of that, it has to be the greatest zombie movie of all time. So continuing in our journey through George A. Romero's films, we're gonna go back to Dawn of the Dead. Now, Dawn of the Dead saw the introduction of Tom Savini. And really, it wasn't the introduction, but it's the first time you really got to see Tom Savini at work. Um, George A. Romero worked with him on the 1977 film Martin and brought him back to do the special effects for Dawn of the Dead, which allowed Savini to really highlight his ability to create gruesome effects on a limited budget. And he contributes this to the fact that he is one of the only special effects artists that has seen the real thing. He was a medic in the Vietnam War, and he saw a lot of gruesome deaths, a lot of injuries, people's guts hanging out, and he used that whenever he would do his special effects. So he kind of knew what it was really supposed to look like. On a side note, Tom Savini did an amazing remake of the 1968 Night of the Living Dead in 1990. And if you've never seen it, I highly recommend it, because I mean, it's right up there with the original, if not better. That was kind of hard for me to say, but it truly could be better than the original, which is very rare for a remake. Tom Savini, after years of working on special effects, was considered to be the godfather of gore. Also, I forgot to mention, Tom Savini is also a native of the Pittsburgh area. Um, Day of the Dead came out in 1985, which is the third installment of the Night of the Living Dead series, and this movie was another introduction to a Pittsburgh native, Greg Nicotero, who in this movie did acting and also worked on the special effects. More on Greg Nicotero later. Romero released 6 films in the Night of the Living Dead series. The first one, obviously Night of the Living Dead, followed by Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. The first 3 movies I consider to be the best. Now, I enjoyed the following 3, but they kind of lacked what the first 3 in his series had. And that's going to be Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, Survival of the Dead. Those movies came out from 2005 to 2009. They were a good continuation. I don't know. I feel like they kind of started to get a little, not far fetched, but they just kind of lacked substance, in my opinion. But you cannot go wrong with the first 3. Like, if it was just a trilogy, it would be probably one of the greatest trilogies ever. I would compare it to The Godfather in drama movies, or The Godfather for gangster movies. The first 3 Night of the Living Dead movies, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, is the godfather of zombie movies, in my opinion. So, without a doubt, Pittsburgh is the zombie capital of the world and the birthplace of the modern zombie genre, and its influence can be seen in many pop culture medias, such as in video games. If you've ever played Left 4 Dead, The Last of Us, you know that you can go to real life locations from the Pittsburgh area, which is a nod to what Pittsburgh is to zombies. It's the birthplace. In Left 4 Dead, you can go to in Left 4 Dead, you can go to the Mercy Hospital. In The Last of Us, you go and you can see the signs, and you can cross the many bridges and go into the buildings in Pittsburgh. GameWick Games released a card game called Pittsburgh 68 that pays tribute to the original Night of the Living Dead. Now, this is a card game that I didn't hear about until recently. I plan on trying to find it, because I'm kind of intrigued to see exactly what it is. And it, like I said, it's a nod to the original Night of the Living Dead. So I mean, I'm all for that. And not just movies, not just TV shows and video games, but even music can be influenced by George A. Romero's movies. For example, My Chemical Romance wrote the song Sunsets Over Monroeville in reference to the Dawn of the Dead movie. Now, we could spend hours on all the different movies and shows and video games and everything that has been influenced by George A. Romero, but I mean, like I said, that would be like 4 hour videos, and um, there's just too much we owe to George A. Romero and what he has done to open up the door for creativity whenever it comes to what a zombie is and where it can go. And we're still, to this day, continuing to kind of see where this can go. But there's one thing that I do want to mention, because without George A. Romero, we would not have one of the greatest video game franchises of all time, and that is Resident Evil. Could you imagine not ever playing Resident Evil, or like what Resident Evil might have been without what George A. Romero did? I mean, I can't imagine like not being able to play Resident Evil. Um, Now, a few other movies and shows and stuff that you can say were 100% influenced by George A. Romero are 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later, Shaun of the Dead, Train to Busan, World War Z, even the Marvel Zombies, and also AMC's The Walking Dead. Like I said, we were going to touch on Greg Nicotero, another Pittsburgh native, later on. This is that time. If that name sounds familiar, it's because Greg Nicotero is one of the producers of AMC's The Walking Dead, but he also continues to carry the torch that George A. Romero carried for so long, because he still does the special effects for the AMC Walking Dead. And if you remember, he got his start on Day of the Dead doing special effects, and has continued to progress and hone his skills on the AMC Walking Dead. And if you've never watched that, or if you have, you know that he does amazing work. Now, everything and anything that we know of zombies today, we owe to George A. Romero. He opened the door to the zombie universe, and we are still continuing to explore it. And I am so excited to see where this goes. I love zombie movies. I love zombie video games. Like I said, I love Resident Evil. The Last of Us was one of the greatest games ever created. Left 4 Dead was fun. And I even love playing the Call of Duty Zombies. So, I mean, there's so many different aspects of zombies, and it's ingrained in Pittsburgh. I mean, we have zombie walks, we have zombie tours. You can go to different filming locations from all these movies if you wanted to. What makes a Pittsburgh person? Pierogies, the Steelers, and zombies. I mean, that's it. That's what we hold dear. And if you don't believe us, come here. And it doesn't even have to be during Halloween. It's a year-round phenomenon. And like I said, I am just proud. Like, cause it's one thing to like zombie movies, and it's one thing to like slasher movies, that sort of thing. But to have like a personal tie to it, to be able to go to these places, and to just know that like the place that you grew up had such a impact on society, on pop culture. It's amazing, and there's no way you can ever convince me that Pittsburgh is not the zombie capital of the world. The only place that I would even give a close second would be maybe New Orleans, Haiti, because that's where kind of the voodoo zombie comes from. But other than that, there's not a single place on the planet that has had such an impact on this particular genre of horror movies than Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. What do you think is the zombie capital of the world? Do you agree with me that it's Pittsburgh? Do you think it's somewhere else? Do you think it's the UK, because that's kind of where the fast zombies came from? What do you think is the greatest zombie movie of all time? Leave it in the comments. I'm open for any I have an open mind, so if you feel that you can change my mind, by all means, I want to hear your argument. Um, if you like the video, please like it. Please subscribe to our channel. Check out our other videos. Share it. We want to continue to grow this channel, not just for ourselves, but for the horror community. We want it to be kind of like your one-stop shop for everything horror. And if you're not the biggest fan of horror movies, then you probably haven't got to this part. But we don't just solely do horror movies. If you have questions about superheroes, video games, we're both just big geeks, so I mean, we'll do anything, any type of suggestion. If you want us to do our top 10 comedies, if you want to do top 10 cartoons, that sort of thing, we'll be more than happy to. Until next time, have a good one and stay spooky.